Oh yes, the Barbie movie is yet another Hollywood woke virtue signaling. It wasn't a Truman Show-inspired Hollywood comedy with insight into real-world issues, but yet another smash the patriarchy nonsense built by man-hating women and Hollywood elites who are ungrateful for everything they have because of the same patriarchy they blame their problems for.
Even in the Little Women press junket, even talking to a female writer-director, the men would often talk over the women.
Now don't get me wrong, the West hasn't been a patriarchy in a while. We aren't the Middle East, we aren't Saudi Arabia or Iran or even communist China. We at the West have been a mixed demographic in terms of power for a while now. Our women don't wear clothes to cover their faces, nor do they need men's permission to live their lives, unlike certain Middle Eastern countries where the patriarchy is relevant. But that's not how the activists and populist politicians would like to make out America or the West to be. We have politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez whine about the patriarchy right from the highest political offices in our country.
In front of reporters, Representative Yoho called me, and I quote, a fucking bitch.
Our men and women are so gullible they fall for such political stunts. This movie Barbie is no better. Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie movie, has been milking the idea of Western patriarchy for a while now. Her last movie, Little Women, was about the struggles of 19th century rich women. It was about how in England during the 1800s, how men dominated women during this period, how women in general had no rights to do anything at all. How they were trophy wives and ideally owned by their husbands or their fathers, a complete misrepresentation of our history.
I mean, that's my idea of the patriarchy, which is a system of male dominance.
A huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely?
Women didn't work at the highest political offices due to pregnancy and the birth pill and other contraceptives not being available at that time. Technology hadn't progressed long enough to accommodate women at such highest offices. Pregnancy kept women behind from most high careers, and the world was much harsher back then. For the most part, even men couldn't vote to elect their leaders or to control the political system that controlled their lives. Very few men had all the power. Most men died in wars. Most men didn't even reach the age of 30 or 40. They died from diseases or war. Meanwhile, women sat back at home, either cheating on their husbands or running away with their earnings. Not all women betrayed their husbands, but most women did, and that's where all the stories and nicknames for such women came from. Anyways, coming back to the Barbie movie, the film started with Margot Robbie being a Disney princess living in her fantasy world, all happy and everything all the time.
Hey Barbie! Hi Barbie! Hi Barbie! Hi Barbie!
Barbie lives in a matriarchal world where women run the world, where women run the political offices, or even something as manly as construction work that required a lot of physical strength. Even that is done by women, or the Barbies as they call themselves. Meanwhile, men of Barbieland live their lives as trophy partners, fighting each other for Barbie's attention. All the kids of the Barbie world are beta males who are crying for Barbie's attention, for female gaze, fighting each other to be seen. Oh yes, thank you modern Hollywood. Thank you for inspiring all young boys and reminding adult men of the world where their rightful place is, running behind the all-powerful and great Barbie.
Right, look, when you're talking to your doctor, just tell him you have a spiral fracture of the left radius.
No! No!
Deep breath.
Anyways, one day Barbie, played by Margot Robbie, has a bad day. Her feet is now touching down and her skin is not perfect. So she has to go to the real world and meet the child who's playing rough with her toy. Oh yes, that's how stupid this movie is. You could see the Lego movie inspiration everywhere in the film. All they had to do was cast Chris Pratt and Will Ferrell. Oh yes, they cast Will Ferrell as the typical evil boss of the real world. Anyways, back to the story. Ken and Barbie search the parody real world for answers to Barbie's questions. Ken finds patriarchy from the library. My dude decides to go back to Barbie world and convert all the Kens to take over the matriarchal Barbie land for themselves and turn it into the bad and evil patriarchal world. Like the real world according to Greta Gerwig, the filmmaker. And so when Margot Robbie and her human diverse lading sidekicks return to Barbie land and witness the Kens have taken over their matriarchal woman kingdom and turned it into evil male-led kingdom, Oh, those evil men needs to be defeated and shown their real place in the world. So the diverse leading sidekicks create a plan to take over Barbieland from the evil men of that world by releasing the other Barbies from being brainwashed by their male kins. And finally they succeeded with the power of feminism or whatever. That's it. That's how the film ends, with the evil men defeated by the pure Barbies who want good for the Barbieland. The end.
Oh no. Anyway.
What nonsense was this? Really, this is what all the hype was about. Yet another film about the invisible patriarchy and how evil men are. This is what the Barbie and Oppenheimer rivalry was all about. The patriarchy, fuck off movie. This is easily one of the worst Truman Show inspired film I've ever seen. A film that outright hates men and men's interest in taking part in the political or any field with any kind of power. A film that openly shames men for having the guts to rule the world.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
The film even made Helen Mirren say that the kins of Barbieland wouldn't have equal rights until women of the real world have rights. Really? Women in the real world have no rights? I mean, you had enough privilege and power to make this man-hating movie, so how come Greta Gerwig and producer Margot Robbie have no shame in milking the current political climate in the West? In order to gain support for their garbage political movie Barbie, from where I sit, women have all rights that men do. They have even more privilege to make such a nonsensical film about how women don't have power in the world. Meanwhile, this movie is directed, written and produced by a woman. How shameless can Hollywood elites be? The entire message of the film was that when men rule the world, they do it for evil purposes. Meanwhile, when women rule, that's all good and sunshine. Let the matriarchy win.
I was curious if you took away any, commentary on, patriarchy and war.
Men start wars, and the entire planet should be a matriarchy.
I don't remember asking you a goddamn thing.
This movie didn't deserve all the hype. Oppenheimer, a film from Christopher Nolan starring good actors like Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., deserved recognition. At the same time, men of sound mind should boycott Barbie movie or movies like Barbie that antagonizes male desires to run for political offices or men's interests in gaining power through competence. Films like Barbie deserves to bomb. It's the same kind of nonsense that Disney has been pushing through their films for a while now. That's the sole reason why many Disney movies have been bombing and flopping left and right at Hollywood. This movie from Warner Brothers deserves to flop just like Lightyear or other Disney movies like Little Mermaid.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is...
She's not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true.
Give me a break, give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
The acting in the film was probably way better than it deserves to be. The film at its core felt like a spoof movie, with a ton of SJW messages from Twitter and leftist colleges. Just a ton of Hollywood Californian SJW slurs and slangs, just garbage social justice messages that has destroyed modern Hollywood, the same kind of SJW nonsense that's plagued even Marvel Studios.
Well, here's the thing, Bruce. I'm great at controlling my anger. I do it all the time. But when I'm catcalled in the street...
Race, color, gender stereotypes, etc. Just terrible leftist messages that we've come to learn from modern-day Hollywood studios and filmmakers. Greta Gerwig has been making such films all her life. Her movies Little Woman and Lady Bird were no different. She's gained enough clout and support from feminists across the West through such SJW movies. There is no way she wouldn't want to lose all that support now, but if the Barbie movie fails, that would help us normal people create enough powerful impact to show Hollywood elites their place among the mainstream. But due to high-end marketing and PR, it seems like Barbie is most likely to turn in enough box office money to beat even Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. It's terrible how gullible us audiences are with the kind of movies that we choose to support. It's always our fault. It's because we support movies like Barbie by throwing all the cash in the world in the name of strong social media trends and secret Hollywood PR. It's our fault such SJW films keep being made in the West. The people who made the sets of the film did a great job constructing the Barbie land and that fictional toy world. The movie is very similar to the Lego movie. It seems like the toy makers of Barbie saw Lego movie and decided they needed one for themselves, and hired a director whose name would bring in female audiences to their cinemas, especially the woke ones. Plus they hired Ryan Gosling since they knew the film needed strong male audience support in order to create social media impact. Ryan Gosling and his Sigma fans fell for Barbie's marketing, and so did I myself. I was expecting a Truman Show level of a movie with a ton of comedy sprinkled in, but what I saw was another Hollywood SJW woke movie that made me cringe from the beginning till the very end. Just garbage movie, trash.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.